Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Sharon's Chicago Med Season 10, Episode 19 romance issue is a disservice to her character arc. Chicago Med Season 10, Episode 19, titled The Stories We Tell Ourselves, damaged Sharon's Apatha character arc by focusing exclusively on an issue between her and her boyfriend. Sharon has had a difficult year in Chicago Med Season 10. She spent the first half of the season dealing with a stalker that she couldn't prove was bothering her, culminating in her being attacked in her own office. She has finally begun to get past the trauma of the attack, instead dealing with a more mundane problem in this episode. During the stories we tell ourselves, Sharon fights for an extension to the negotiation deadline for the nurse's new contract while also dealing with a romantic issue. The episode begins with Dennis' daughter, Alex, making a surprise visit, and revealing she has no idea he is dating Sharon. Understandably, Sharon is upset by Dennis' omission, especially after he makes excuses for not telling Alex about Sharon earlier. This conflict may not be over and could play into the explosive Chicago Med Season 10 finale. Sharon's conflict with Dennis takes center stage in the stories we tell ourselves. After Sharon confronts Dennis about his failure to tell Alex about their relationship, he attempts to make up for it by setting up a lunch at a restaurant for all three of them, which leads to a further conflict when Dennis learns from Alex that Sharon said the relationship was not serious. All of these beats play out on screen throughout the hour. Conversely, Sharon's nurse negotiation story mostly plays out off-screen, getting only a couple of scenes. After negotiations break down, Sharon suggests a week's extension so that the administration has time to work out a new deal. While Maggie has several scenes with the nurses on screen, Sharon disappears after making this proposal, only reappearing at the end of the episode when Maggie confronts her over the issue of Sharon lining up scabs to replace the nurses in the event they go on strike. Sharon is vital to the nurse strike storyline, yet her part in the nurses' strike story seems minimal until the end of the episode. While Sharon concentrates on the conflict with Dennis, Maggie moves this story forward by vouching for Sharon with the other nurses and later discovering that her trust has been betrayed. This leads to a meaty confrontation scene between the two, but it falls flat because of Sharon's absence from the storyline. However, leaving Sharon's role off-screen helps the shock value of the moment where Maggie learns that Sharon has betrayed her. This plot point would have been stronger if there had been some foreshadowing of Sharon's decision to call in scabs. The surprise could have been both prepared for and preserved by having Sharon make a call on screen without making it clear what it was about. Conversely, having Sharon disappear altogether makes the plot twist feel forced because it happened without any advance warning. Additionally, Sharon's inner conflict over her choices is missing from this storyline because Sharon does not do anything related to the strike on screen except for ask for an extension to the deadline. Sharon will likely take a more active role in the strike storyline now that her betrayal has been revealed. However, the medical drama needs to avoid making the same mistake it did with the aftermath of Chicago Med's Sharon stalker plot. The writers dropped the ball with that story, failing to reference Sharon's trauma in a story that needed it. To prevent a similar problem here, they need to ensure they give ample time to both professional and personal plots for Sharon. For example, future strike and romantic developments should get equal airtime. The key is for Chicago Med to avoid redundant scenes, especially at the expense of screen time for other aspects of Sharon's story. Sharon and Dennis had similar arguments about Alex numerous times. Some of these arguments could have been cut in favor of more screen time for the strike story. Sharon can and should have a romantic arc, but her love life should never again dominate an episode to the point that there is no room for necessary scenes related to her professional life. Over the years, Chicago Med has built a reputation for its emotionally complex storylines, but Season 10, Episode 19 took a surprising detour, one that ultimately did a disservice to Sharon Goodwin's powerful character arc. Watching a seasoned, resilient leader like Sharon get wrapped up in a clumsy and poorly timed romantic subplot felt less like natural character development and more like an unnecessary side quest that undermined her growth. Since the pilot episode, Sharon has been the heart and backbone of Chicago Med. She's weathered boardroom battles, ethical dilemmas, budget cuts, lawsuits, and the many disasters that inevitably come through the hospital doors. Her journey has been marked by strength, pragmatism, and most importantly, independence. Sharon Goodwin doesn't just survive challenges, she faces them head-on, often carrying the weight of the entire hospital on her shoulders. That's why episode 19's sudden romantic storyline felt so jarring. It wasn't that Sharon doesn't deserve love, far from it. But the way the writers introduced and executed this arc felt like it betrayed the very foundation they had built for her. Instead of feeling like a triumphant, earned moment of vulnerability and growth, Sharon's flirtation with the new hospital administrator felt forced, juvenile, and frankly, out of character. The major issue wasn't that Sharon was shown having romantic feelings, it was how the story framed her emotions. Instead of portraying Sharon's interest as mature and considered, befitting a woman of her experience, the episode reduced her to a flustered teenager. Scenes of Sharon fumbling her words, giggling, and acting out of sorts felt bizarrely out of sync with the confident woman fans know and admire. For a character who once stood toe-to-toe with hospital boards and made gut-wrenching ethical decisions, seeing her tripping over herself in the name of a crush felt like regression, not evolution. Worse still, the romance subplot came at the expense of more important storylines that had been simmering all season. Sharon's battle with hospital bureaucracy and her fight to maintain patient-first care in a profit-driven environment were sidelined to make room for awkward lunch dates and cringy small talk. These battles were where Sharon's true passion and strength shone brightest, not in nervous glances across the break room. And let's talk about the love interest himself. Bland, underwritten, and nowhere near Sharon's equal. A character like Sharon Goodwin deserves a partner who challenges her, respects her depth, and understands the fire in her. Instead, we got a forgettable administrator whose idea of chemistry was making awkward jokes and complimenting Sharon's coffee choices. The supposed spark between them was more like a damp match struggling to ignite. Fans have watched Sharon navigate complex relationships before, with her ex-husband, with hospital staff, even with difficult patients. She's never been one to prioritize romance over responsibility. Her character has always emphasized that fulfillment doesn't come solely from romantic validation. Her commitment to her career, her patience, and her moral compass have been the real love story all along. So why, in Season 10, Episode 19, did the showrunners decide to flatten her into a trope? There was so much potential to explore Sharon's emotional life with nuance. What would it mean for her to open up to someone after years of building emotional armor? What vulnerabilities would surface, and how would she balance personal happiness with her profound sense of duty? There was rich territory to mine there. Instead, the show gave us a lazy caricature of a mature woman in love, full of tired cliches and no real emotional weight. The timing of it all couldn't have been worse either. At a point in the season where tensions at the hospital are higher than ever, with staff shortages, budget crises, and ethical scandals brewing, the show chose to detour into a half-baked romance that no one was asking for. Sharon's leadership, her struggles, and her wisdom should have been spotlighted more than ever. Instead, they were drowned out by elevator glances and awkward date planning. It's particularly frustrating because Sharon has long represented something rare on television, a woman of color in a leadership role, portrayed with complexity, dignity, and resilience. She's been a role model not just to characters within the show, but to audiences watching. To reduce her to a giggling, love-struck subplot feels like a profound misunderstanding of what makes her character special.